You already know there's nothing in the dark. You are an intelligent adult. You have walked through your own home 10,000 times. You know, for a fact, that the hallway at night contains exactly what it contained during the day. A wall, a door, some furniture. Nothing has changed except the light. And yet, when you get up at 3 a.m. and the house is black, and you have to walk down that hallway, some part of you speeds up. Some part of you does not want to turn your back on the darkness behind you. Some part of you, an intelligent adult, is a little bit certain that something is there. So here's what we're going to figure out. Why are you afraid of nothing? Why is it worse as a specific kind of dark? And why, this is the strange one, does knowing there's nothing there not help at all? Stay with me, because the answer to that last one is the part nobody tells you. Let's be clear about how strange this is. You are not afraid of the dark. Think about it. A dark room you know is empty and safe. A cinema, your bed with the lights off, doesn't scare you. So it's not the absence of light that frightens you. Darkness itself is harmless, and you know it. What frightens you is something much more specific. Not being able to see what might be there. The dark isn't the threat. The dark is the hiding place for the threat. Your fear was never about the dark at all. It's about what the dark could be concealing. And that distinction is the whole key. Because once you see it that way, every strange thing about this fear suddenly makes perfect sense. Starting with the most obvious question, what, exactly, is your brain so sure is hiding there? For virtually all of human history, the answer was simple and correct. Predators. We talked about this a little before, but here's the part that matters for tonight. Humans are a daytime animal. Our eyes are built for daylight. Good color, good detail, useless in the dark. But many of the animals that hunted us were the opposite. Big cats especially, built for low light, silent, patient. For your ancestors, the setting sun didn't just mean time to sleep. It meant the world was handed over to things that could see you when you couldn't see them. So every night, for hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors sat in a small circle of firelight, surrounded by a wall of blackness that could contain anything. And the ones who sat there relaxed, incurious, assuming the dark was empty. A certain number of them were simply gone by morning. The ones who survived to become your ancestors were the ones whose brains did something specific with the darkness. And it's that specific thing, not fear exactly, something weirder, that you inherited. We'll get to what it is. But first, why does it target children so hard? Almost every child, in every culture, goes through a phase of being afraid of the dark. It's nearly universal. And that universality is a huge clue. It tells you this isn't learned from scary movies. It's built in. It arrives on schedule, and it makes brutal sense. For most of human history, a small child alone in the dark was the single most vulnerable thing in the entire tribe. Slow, weak, unable to fight or flee. If a child wandered off into the dark, or slept somewhere unprotected, the odds were genuinely terrible. So evolution gave children an especially loud version of this alarm. A fear strong enough to keep them from wandering into the night. Strong enough to make them cry out for a bigger human, which, not coincidentally, is exactly the response most likely to keep them alive. A child screaming for a parent in the dark isn't malfunctioning. That scream is a survival tool that worked for 100,000 years. Which brings us to the strangest part of all, the thing I promised at the start. Why doesn't knowing better make it go away? Here's the detail that unlocks everything. Your brain does not process fear in one place. Roughly speaking, you have two systems. There's the slow, thoughtful, rational one, the part reading these words, the part that knows the hallway is empty. And there's a fast, ancient, emotional alarm system, the one we've talked about before, that reacts to threats in a fraction of a second. And here is the crucial thing. The fast system does not take orders from the slow one. They're not wired that way. The alarm can fire completely independently of what you rationally know. This is why you can be terrified during a horror film while knowing you're safe on a sofa. Your logical brain has all the correct information. The alarm system simply isn't listening. It was built to act first and ask questions later, because for your ancestors, the cost of overreacting to a shadow was nothing, and the cost of underreacting to a real predator was everything. So when you stand at the top of that dark hallway and tell yourself, "There's nothing there," you're right, and it doesn't help, because you're using the slow system to send a memo to the fast system, and the fast system doesn't read memos. It just watches the dark, and it does not trust it, and no amount of being correct will make it stand down. You're not being irrational. You're just not in charge of that part. Nobody is. But it gets even more specific than that, because your fear of the dark has rules. Notice how particular this fear is. It's not random. It follows patterns that are almost embarrassingly logical once you see them. You don't want your back to the dark. Walking away from a dark room feels worse than facing it. Of course it does. A threat you can't see coming is worse than one you can. Your ancestors who kept their eyes on the darkness saw the pounce coming. The ones who turned their backs didn't. You move faster near the end. The last few steps to the light switch, the final stretch of stairs, you speed up, sometimes you nearly run. That's the ancient logic that the moment you break cover and move is the moment of maximum danger, so you minimize the time you're exposed. And the worst version is the feeling of being watched. That specific prickle on the back of your neck, that's not nothing either. Humans are extraordinarily tuned to detect being looked at, because for most of history, being watched from the dark meant you were being hunted. Your brain would rather trigger that feeling 1,000 times for nothing than miss the one time it's real. So it's not one clumsy fear. It's a precise, ancient security system, still running every one of its protocols. Which leaves the last question, the real one. Why don't we grow out of it completely? Most adults will tell you they're not afraid of the dark, and mostly that's true. The loud childhood version fades. But be honest. Alone in an unfamiliar house, a power cut, a dark basement, a dark forest, a dark parking garage. The old feeling is right there, instantly, fully intact, like it never left, because it didn't leave, it just went quiet. Evolution doesn't delete a survival system that costs almost nothing to keep. And this one is cheap, a little unease, some wasted worry on empty rooms. In exchange for that small tax, you keep a system that, for 100,000 years, was the difference between your ancestors living and dying in the dark. So it stays, dormant, in the daylight, in the familiar, and ready, fully, instantly ready, the moment you're somewhere dark and unknown. It's not a childish thing you failed to outgrow. It's a permanent feature, running exactly as designed. So let's go back to that hallway at 3 a.m. That speeding heartbeat, that refusal to turn your back, that certainty that something's there. None of it is weakness, and none of it is a flaw in you. It is a gift, handed down through an unbroken chain of people who were afraid enough to survive. Every single one of your ancestors, without exception, made it through enough dark nights to have children. Not one of them was the one who got taken. You are the end of a 100,000-year winning streak against the dark. And the fear you feel in that hallway is the same fear that kept every one of them alive. It's them, still watching the dark on your behalf, still refusing to trust it, still getting you safely to the light switch, the way they got themselves safely to morning, for 10,000 generations. The lights come on. It's just a hallway. It was always just a hallway. But the part of you that wasn't sure, be gentle with it. It's very old, and it's very tired, and it has been standing guard in the dark since long before you were born. It doesn't know the predators are gone. Nobody ever told it, so it still stands up, every time, just in case. For you. You don't have to be brave in the dark. You just have to know who's in there with you. And it was never a monster. It was always your own people, still trying to keep you safe. If this made the dark a little less frightening, or, honestly, if it made it worse, sorry about that, let me know in the comments. And tell me, what's the one place the fear still gets you, as an adult? For me, it's basements. Every time. Subscribe, there's a new one every week. I'm Wired, and you're stranger than you think.